Today's mathematics, biblical facts on isolation. As a Bible teacher, God often sets people apart through isolation. It's important to note that isolation and loneliness are distinct. Feeling lonely doesn't necessarily mean God has isolated you. This understanding is rooted in biblical passages such as when God calls Abraham in Genesis 12, 1-3, to leave his father's country and nation and promises to bless and make him a great nation. This passage shows that isolation is the mother of greatness. Isolation is not a punishment, but a transformative process. It's a period of preparation for God's work, during which significant needs are often developed. God separates people not to punish them, but to prepare them. For he does not take chances. He meticulously equips anyone he intends to use, transforming them in the process. David was anointed at 15, but became a king at 30 because God was preparing him. If you're going to represent God, you need to be equipped and prepared. Isolation is necessary for preparation. As its word, God reveals your gift to you. Your gift goes through 3 stages: birth, awareness, and capacitation. Isolation is crucial for understanding and preparation. God isolates the chosen ones to capacitate them through training before commissioning them. Consider the journey of David, who was anointed king at 15, but spent the next 15 years in isolation, preparing for his role. This period of isolation was crucial in shaping his character and deepening his trust in God. When God isolates people, they begin to have unique encounters that prepare them for their divine purpose. In Genesis 32:24, Jacob wrestles with the angel of the Lord while isolated. Divine encounters require isolation and cannot be had in public. To have these experiences, embracing the mystery of isolation is important. God called Saul, who became Paul, after meeting Jesus on his way to Damascus. After being isolated for 3 days, he emerged as a new person, because when God isolates you, you can't come out the same. God equips you with what you need because he chose you. What God put inside you will overcome anything that comes against you. Isolation is not a punishment from God, but a divine strategy for growth. Great men in the Bible experienced isolation, and it's during this time that God works on changing your desires and appetite. When you emerge from isolation, you may find that the people and places you used to enjoy no longer interest you. This is because isolation is a time for growth, guided by God's hand. God changes a person's appetite to begin his work through them. The children of Israel, a chosen nation, were isolated in the wilderness. During this time, they ate angels' food, manna from heaven, which they desired more than their usual diet. This new appetite arose because of their isolation. When you find yourself in isolation, you may encounter God. It's essential to ensure that you do not become your own obstacle to what God wants to start through you. Sometimes you may reject God's call over your life because of your selfish desires. This is dangerous because it costs you and those who come after you. When God works through you or starts something through you, it's not just about you, but it's about those who will come after you. Listen up. God commanded Abraham to change his life forever. If he had refused, he would have missed out on great blessings. God chooses and isolates specific individuals to elevate them. This is a fact. If you are selected, you need to understand that isolation is for elevation, and you must grasp the revelation of your isolation to obtain it. God isolates people to elevate them. To be elevated, one must understand the reason behind their isolation. The longer it takes to understand, the longer the isolation. But as soon as the reason is understood, God elevates. Isolation leads to greatness and a new level. This highlights that our isolation is not a setback, but rather it is a stepping stone to our elevation in spiritual greatness. Paul spent 14 years in the desert of Arabia before meeting the apostles. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he mentions a man who experienced things not lawful to alter. Although he talks about himself, the 14 years refers to this time in the desert. When God chooses a person, he will isolate them. Emerging from isolation, you'll have a new story to tell and be lifted by God. It's not about showcasing your transformation to others, but about manifesting the greatness within you that you discovered while in isolation. There are 3 stages of this process. The first stage is when God puts a gift inside a person. This is the stage where the gift is birthed and you become aware of it. Then God prepares you in this stage. Second stage is when your gift matures and God equips you to handle it. Finally, in the third, the last stage, is where your gift is fully exposed, manifested, and elevated by God. Sometimes God isolates us, which may cause people to reject us. Isolation doesn't necessarily mean being away from civilization, as we can have experiences in it in our homes or workplaces. When we no longer fit in with those around us, avoid socialization, and lose interest in things we used to enjoy, we may be in isolation. God may not physically take us to a mountain, but may close doors around us, indicating we're in a season of isolation. So get involved with our rebuilding efforts by liking, following, subscribing, and sharing as we rebuild the city. If you need that help in rebuilding your life or family, request our blueprint at info@rebuildthecity.com.